With nowhere to go, he hides in the cave. But who he meets changes his life. Caleb Harrison had been walking the trails of the Blue Ridge Mountains for 3 days, his feet sore and his stomach growling with hunger. The 12-year-old boy had left home with no destination, taking only the clothes on his back and the ache in his chest that seemed never to fade. It was when he spotted the cave among the rocks that he decided to go in and hide. The darkness welcomed him like an embrace, but his eyes hadn't adjusted yet when he heard a hoarse voice coming from the depths. "Who's there?" Caleb froze. His heart raced and he took a step back, ready to run. "Easy, boy. I won't hurt you," said the voice, softer now. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was a man with a long beard and graying hair, wearing old, torn clothes. His eyes, however, held something familiar that made Caleb hesitate. You're living here?" asked the boy, still scared. "For a few months," replied the man, studying the boy's face carefully. "And you? What's a child doing alone in the Blue Ridge Mountains?" Caleb didn't answer. He didn't know if he could trust this stranger. But he was so tired, so hungry, that his legs trembled and he had to lean against the cave wall. "You're hungry," observed the man. "I have some wild berries over there. Help yourself." "I don't want anything from you," lied Caleb, though his stomach protested loudly. The man smiled sadly. "Proud like your father, I see." The words came out before he realized. Caleb's head jerked up. "What's that? You know my father?" The man tensed, realizing his slip. He quickly turned to fiddle with some objects in the corner of the cave. "I didn't say that. You must have misunderstood." But Caleb wasn't stupid. There was something strange about that reaction. And there was something about those eyes, that voice that reminded him of someone he'd been trying to forget for 2 years. "My father is missing," said the boy, watching the man's reaction. "He went out to work one day and never came back." The man stopped fiddling with the objects. His shoulders grew tense. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "My stepmother says he abandoned us because he couldn't stand taking care of me and my sister anymore," Caleb continued, his voice choked. "She says he was weak and that we have to forget him." The man turned slowly. There were tears in his eyes. "And do you believe that?" "I don't know what to believe anymore," confessed Caleb. "I just know she wants to send me to a juvenile detention center, said she can't handle my tantrums anymore, and that I need to learn to be a man away from her. Is that why you ran away? I heard her on the phone last night. She was arranging for them to pick me up this morning, so I left before sunrise." The man approached slowly, as if dealing with a wounded animal. "What's your name?" "Caleb." "Caleb Harrison." The man squeezed his eyes shut, as if the name were a stab wound. "Caleb," he repeated, almost whispering. "That's a fine name." "And you, sir? What's your name?" There was a long pause. The man seemed stuck, wrestling with some internal decision. "You can call me Bill," he said finally. Caleb knew that wasn't his real name. There was a lie in that voice, just like there was a lie in his stepmother's voice when she said she cared about him. "Bill," the boy repeated, testing it. "Okay, Bill, can I stay here until morning? I promise I won't be a bother." "Of course you can, and you don't have to leave in the morning if you don't want to. This cave is big enough for both of us." That night Caleb slept better than he had in months. When he woke, the scent of berries cooking over the fire filled the cave. Bill was preparing something that looked like sweet porridge. "Good morning, champ," said Bill, smiling. Caleb sat up quickly. That word champ echoed in his mind like an echo from a distant past. "Your father used to call you that every morning." "Good morning," he replied, observing the man with renewed attention. "There's something about him," thought Caleb. "Something I can't quite identify, but that makes me feel calm." Bill served the sweet porridge into an old but clean bowl. "Eat slowly. Your stomach must be sensitive after so long without proper food." "How do you know it's been a long time since I ate properly?" Bill hesitated again. "It's easy to see. You're too thin for a boy your age." As he ate, Caleb watched the man's movements. There was something careful in the way he prepared the food, as if he was used to caring for children. And there were objects scattered around the cave that seemed to have been there longer than just a few months. Bill, can I ask you a question? Of course. Why are you living here? Are you running from something too? The man stopped stirring the fire. His face closed off. Everyone is running from something, boy. Sometimes it's easier to hide than to face your problems. My father wasn't like that, said Caleb, watching for a reaction. He always said a man faces difficulties head on. Bill clenched his fists. A tear ran down his bearded face. Your father was a wise man. Was? How do you know what he was like? It was just a figure of speech. But Caleb noticed the awkwardness. It was as if Bill knew more than he was saying. Over the following days, the two developed a routine. Bill taught Caleb about life in the Blue Ridge Mountains, showed him which wild berries were good to eat, how to make fire without matches, how to find clean water. And Caleb realized that this knowledge wasn't from someone who had always lived in the wild. It was as if Bill had learned it all recently, out of necessity. One afternoon, while picking wild berries, Bill asked about Caleb's sister. How old is she? 8. Her name is Lily. She's small but clever. She was always Daddy's favorite. Bill smiled sadly. I bet he called her his little princess. Caleb stopped picking berries. That specific word, little princess, was the affectionate nickname only his father used for Lily. How do you know that? Bill realized he'd slipped up again. The lies were getting harder to maintain. It's common for fathers to call their daughters that. No, it's not. I've never heard anyone else use that word. Only my father called Lily that. Silence stretched between them. Bill went back to picking berries, avoiding the boy's inquisitive gaze. Bill, are you hiding something from me? Everyone has their secrets, Caleb. But yours have to do with me, don't they? Bill sighed deeply. It was becoming more and more difficult to keep up the charade, especially because his heart ached every time he looked at the son he hadn't seen grow up properly for the last 2 years. Let's head back to the cave. It's getting dark. That night, Caleb pretended to be asleep but stayed alert. Around midnight, he heard Bill crying softly. Between the sobs, he could make out a few words. Forgive me, my son. I am a coward. Sarah, my love, forgive me. Sarah was his mother's name, who had lost her life when Lily was born. Caleb got goosebumps all over. How did this man know his mother's name? The next day, he confronted Bill. You knew my mother. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Bill was drinking water from the spring when Caleb spoke. He almost choked. Don't lie to me anymore, said Caleb, his voice firm despite his youth. I heard you saying her name last night, Sarah, and you knew my father called her his little princess. You know things only someone very close to our family could know. Bill sat on a rock, looking defeated. Caleb, you knew my father, didn't you? Were you friends? Is that why you're taking care of me? It's not quite like that, son. The word son slipped out again. Caleb felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. Why did you call me son? Bill covered his face with his hands. I didn't want you to find out like this. Find out what? Shouted Caleb. Tell me the truth now. I can't. If I tell you, it will hurt you more than it already does. It already hurts every day. It hurts when I wake up and remember my father abandoned me. It hurts when Lily asks when he's coming back and I don't know what to say. It hurts when my stepmother says he was a weak, good-for-nothing man. He wasn't weak, exploded Bill, standing up abruptly. Your father is a man who made mistakes, but who loves you more than his own life. How do you know that? Caleb was crying now. How do you know? Bill stared at him for a long moment. The weight of the secret was crushing his chest. Because I am him, he whispered. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The world stopped for Caleb. Bill's words echoed in his mind like distant thunder. He looked at the man in front of him, the grown-out beard, the long graying hair, the thin, tired face. But the eyes were the same. No, it can't be, stammered Caleb, stepping back. I am your father, my son. I am Daniel Harrison. Caleb felt his legs give way. He sat down heavily on a rock, trying to process that impossible revelation. You're lying. My father is dead. Or he abandoned me. I don't know which, but he's not here, living in a cave like a madman. Like a failure, Daniel completed, his voice full of pain. That's what I am, Caleb. That's what I've become. Why? The boy's voice was just a thread. Why did you leave us? Why did you let Lily cry for you every night? Why did you let that woman lie about you? Daniel approached slowly, but Caleb moved away. Don't come near me. You're not my father. My father would never do that to us. I had to make a terrible choice, son. And I chose wrong. I chose you, but in the most cowardly way possible. What choice? What are you talking about? Daniel took a deep breath. It was time to tell everything. I owed a lot of money to dangerous people. A lot of money. I got mixed up in gambling and couldn't stop. I'd lose, try to win it back by betting more and lose even more. Caleb stared at him in disbelief. You? Gambling? But you always said that was for weak people. And I was right. I was weak. I am weak. I started after your mother died. The pain was so great I tried anything to forget. And gambling gave me moments of hope, you know. The possibility of winning, of having a better life for you. So you gambled for our sake. Caleb was furious. Don't try to blame us. No, no. Daniel shook his hands. It's all my fault. I started gambling for you, but I kept going because I was addicted. And when I realized it, I owed more money than I could pay in a lifetime. So what? Why didn't you talk to us? Why didn't you ask for help? Because I was ashamed. And because they threatened you. Caleb stopped retreating. What do you mean? The men I owed started showing up at the house when you were at school. They said if I didn't pay, they'd collect in other ways. They talked about Lily, about you. They described the routes you took to school. The words came with difficulty from Daniel's mouth. Each memory was a stab to the chest. So I came up with a plan. If I faked my own departure, if I disappeared, they would stop threatening you. I thought it would be temporary, that I could work, save money, and come back to pay everything off. But you couldn't? No. When you're on the streets, with no documents, no fixed address, it's impossible to get decent work. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to go back. How was I going to explain 2 years of lies? How was I going to look you in the eye and say I abandoned you out of cowardice? Caleb processed every word. Part of him wanted to run, scream, hit his father for all the suffering he'd caused. Another part wanted to throw himself into his arms and cry out all the moments of longing he'd kept in his chest. Lily, she still asks about you. Daniel broke down, crying. How is she? Has she grown a lot? She's almost as tall as me now, and she's beautiful. She has your eyes. And you? How was it for you all these 2 years? Caleb hesitated. There was so much to tell, so much accumulated pain. It was hard. The stepmother, Gladys. She changed after you left. She got tougher. Says she has to teach us to be strong because we can't count on you. Does she take good care of you? She takes care of Lily. With me it's different. She says I'm too stubborn, that I have too much of you in me. And she hates you, Dad. She really hates you. Daniel hung his head. She has every right to hate me. I was a terrible husband to her. I married her too quickly after your mother died, thinking you needed a mother figure. But I could never truly love her, and she knew it. Why don't you come home now? You can talk to her, explain everything. I can't, son. She knows I'm alive. Caleb's eyes widened. What do you mean? She always knew. The day I disappeared, I left a letter for her explaining everything. I asked her to take care of you and promised I'd never tell you the truth. And she agreed. She agreed, but on one condition, that I never show up in your lives again. She said if I ever tried to come back, she'd tell you about my addiction, about the debts, about how I put the family at risk. Said you'd hate me forever. Caleb felt a rage boiling in his chest. So she knew you were suffering here in the Blue Ridge Mountains while we cried for you? She knew and let it happen. She was protecting you in her own way, Caleb. In her own twisted way. But she was. No, She was being cruel. You're our father. We had a right to know the truth. But what if you did hate me? What if you knew I was an addict who almost put you in danger? Caleb looked straight into his father's eyes. Dad, I'd rather have a father with an addiction and problems than have no father at all. And Lily would too. She cries for you every night. Do you think that's better for her? Daniel was silent for a long time. His son's words echoed in his mind, tearing down all the justifications he'd built for his cowardice. You're right, he finally admitted. I was a coward twice. First, when I ran away instead of facing my problems. Second, when I agreed to stay away instead of fighting for you. So why not come back now? Because I'm afraid it's too late. Afraid you really will hate me when you know everything. Caleb moved closer to his father for the first time since the revelation. Dad, I'm angry. Really angry. But I don't hate you. I could never hate you. Daniel hesitantly reached out his hand. Caleb took it. I'm sorry, my son. I'm sorry for all these 2 stolen years. Then let's make up for lost time. Let's go home together. It's not that simple. Gladys. To hell with Gladys, Caleb exploded. She's not our real family. We are family, you, me, and Lily. But she has legal custody of you. If I show up, she could complicate everything. Then we'll have to be smarter than her. Daniel looked at his son in astonishment. In 2 years, the boy had matured far more than he'd imagined. What do you have in mind? First, we need proof that she knew you were alive. If she lied to everyone, put on that whole grieving widow act, that must count for something, right? You still have that sharp mind, Daniel smiled. Yes, I kept the letter she wrote me confirming our arrangement, and I have other things too. What other things? Photos, documents. She doesn't know, but I'd come back to town sometimes, in the dead of night, just to watch you all from afar. When you'd go to school, when you'd play in the backyard, and one day I saw her talking to a man, a very well-dressed man. What man? I don't know, but they seemed close, and this was only 6 months after my disappearance. Caleb processed the information. You think she has a boyfriend? I think she has more secrets than we imagine, and if she has secrets, she has weaknesses. Then let's find out what those secrets are. Daniel smiled. It was the first time in 2 years he'd felt real hope. But before that, I need to tell you one more thing. About why she really wants to send you to the juvenile detention center. She doesn't like me. That's not news. It's not just that. There's an inheritance involved. Caleb stopped walking. What inheritance? Your mother left some assets, a house she inherited from your grandmother, some jewelry, saved money. It was all put in a trust for you and Lily. You can only access it when you turn 18 or if something happens to me. And does Gladys know about this? She does. And as my legal wife, if something happens to you before you're 18, she inherits everything. Caleb's blood ran cold. Are you saying she wants to send me away to... I don't know for sure, but I know she's in a hurry, and hurry is always a sign something isn't right. Dad, could Lily be in danger? That's why I need to come back. I can't leave you alone with her any longer. Then let's go now. Easy, son. We can't go there without a plan. If we do this wrong, we could lose you forever. They spent the rest of the day planning. Daniel knew Gladys's routine well, the times she went out, the people she talked to. And Caleb knew her moods, knew when it was best to approach and when it was best to avoid her. The first thing we need to do is get Lily out of there, said Daniel. How? If I show up at home, she'll freak out, and if you show up, I won't show up, you will. But she thinks I ran away. She'll send me straight to the juvenile detention center. Not if you come back with a convincing story. And if someone is protecting you. Caleb didn't understand. What story? What protection? You're going to say you were kidnapped. What? You're going to say you were kidnapped by men who wanted to find me. That they took you to the Blue Ridge Mountains to use you as bait. But you managed to escape and hide in the cave. That's a lie. It's a lie to protect a bigger truth. If you show up at home saying you ran away because you didn't want to go to the juvenile detention center, she'll still manage to send you away. But if you were the victim of a crime, the situation gets more complicated for her. Caleb thought about the strategy. And who's going to be the person protecting me? A local from the Blue Ridge Mountains who found you. Someone who wants to do the right thing and return you to your family. You? Me in disguise. Beard trimmed, hair cut, clean clothes. She won't recognize me right away, especially if she isn't expecting to see me. What if she gets suspicious? That's why we'll need witnesses. People who confirm our story. What people? Daniel thought for a moment. Mrs. Gable, who lives in the yellow house near the square. She always liked you and Lily, and she never much cared for Gladys. Caleb remembered the neighbor. She was a kind lady who sometimes gave sweets to the children. You think she'll help us? If we explain the situation, yes. She already suspected there was something strange about my disappearance. How do you know? Because I saw her defending our family a few times when Gladys spoke ill of me on the street, and she always asked about you all, as if she were worried. So should we look for her first? Let's. But first I need to turn back into a person. Daniel laughed for the first time in a long while. It was a sad laugh, but it was a laugh. You're going to look very different without all that beard, observed Caleb. I hope so. I don't want anyone else to recognize me until we're ready. They descended the Blue Ridge Mountains in the late afternoon. Daniel knew a trail that led directly to the backyard of Mrs. Gable's house without going through the town's main streets. The lady was watering her plants when she saw them approaching. First she looked at Caleb with shock and relief, then at Daniel with curiosity and some suspicion. Caleb, my God, boy, where have you been? Your stepmother is desperate looking for you. Is she really? Asked Caleb, skeptical. Well, she said she was. But between us, Mrs. Gable lowered her voice, she didn't seem very worried when she came to ask me if I'd seen you. Mrs. Gable, can I talk to you? It's important. Of course, my boy. And you are? Daniel stepped forward. I'm Bill, ma'am. I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains. That's where I found Caleb. Mrs. Gable invited them inside. Her house was simple but cozy, full of plants and family photos. Tell me what happened, Caleb. The boy took a deep breath and began to tell the version they had agreed on. That mysterious men had approached him when he was leaving school, that they took him to the Blue Ridge Mountains asking questions about his father, that he managed to escape during the night and hide in the cave where Bill found him. Mrs. Gable listened attentively, but her experienced eyes missed no detail. And why did these men want to find your father? I don't know, answered Caleb. They just said he owed them something. The lady's expression changed. It became more serious. Caleb, may I ask you a question? Do you really believe your father died? The boy hesitated. Daniel made a discreet signal for him to stick to the original version. I don't know, my stepmother says so, but... But what? Sometimes I get the feeling she knows things she doesn't tell us. Mrs. Gable looked at Daniel. And you? What do you think of this whole story? Daniel felt his heart race. The question had a tone of suspicion. I think the boy went through a very difficult situation, and I think he needs to go home, but safely. Safely how? With trustworthy people alongside, people who can testify that he didn't run away, that he was the victim of a crime. Mrs. Gable fell silent for a long moment, studying the two of them. You know something? She finally said. I never believed that story about Daniel Harrison dying or abandoning his family. Daniel almost choked. Why? Because I knew that man. He was in trouble, anyone could see that. But he loved these boys more than anything in the world. He would never abandon them of his own free will. But then, what happened to him? Asked Caleb. I don't know. But I know that Gladys isn't telling the whole truth. And I also know, she looked directly at Daniel, that certain people sometimes need to make difficult decisions to protect those they love. The silence that followed was heavy. Daniel realized Mrs. Gable knew or suspected much more than she was saying. Will you help us? Asked Caleb. I will, but on one condition. What? That you tell me the complete truth, all of it. Daniel and Caleb exchanged a look. It was a decisive moment. Mrs. Gable, began Daniel, taking off the cap that covered part of his face. You're right. Daniel Harrison didn't die. And he didn't abandon his children. The lady brought her hand to her chest when she recognized those familiar eyes beneath the grizzled beard. "Good heavens! Daniel!" "Yes, it's me." Mrs. Gable got up from her chair, walked over to him, and hugged him tight. "Boy, where have you been all these 2 years? Do you know how much those children have suffered?" "I do. And it will haunt me for the rest of my life." "Then why did you do it? Why did you let that woman lie about you?" Daniel told the whole story. The debts, the threats, the deal with Gladys, the 2 years living in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Mrs. Gable listened, shaking her head, sometimes with anger, sometimes with pity. "You were a fool, Daniel Harrison," she said when he finished. "A cowardly fool. I know. But you were also a father who wanted to protect his children the way he thought best, even if you chose the wrong way. You'll still help us even knowing everything." "I will. Because those boys need their father, and because Gladys needs to learn that lies have short legs." "But how will we do it?" Mrs. Gable smiled. It was a shrewd smile from someone who knew the secrets of a small town well. "Leave it to me. I know a few things about your wife that you don't, and it's time for her to find out she's not the only clever one in town." "What things?" "You'll find out tomorrow. Today, Daniel, you are going to take a bath, cut that beard and hair, and put on decent clothes. Caleb will sleep here in a real bed. And tomorrow morning we are going to pay a little surprise visit to Gladys. And Lily? Lily will be at school. It's better that way. First we settle the situation with her mother, then we have the family reunion." Daniel looked at his son. "Are you ready for this?" "I am. But Dad?" "Yes?" "No matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know that I forgive you. You did wrong, but you did it thinking of us, and that has to count for something." Daniel hugged his son, crying as he hadn't cried in 2 years. "Thank you, my son. Thank you for giving me a second chance." Mrs. Gable watched the scene with tears in her eyes. It had been a long time since she had seen so much love in her house. "Now let's take care of you," she said, drying her eyes. "Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out now continuing." The morning arrived with a knot in his stomach that Daniel hadn't felt in years. Mrs. Gable had transformed his appearance completely. With his beard trimmed, haircut, and clean clothes, he was almost unrecognizable. Almost. "You're looking like a person again," joked Caleb, trying to disguise his own nervousness. "I just hope Gladys doesn't recognize me right away." "Even if she does, she won't be able to do anything in front of Mrs. Gable and the neighbors," the boy reminded him. Mrs. Gable appeared in the kitchen carrying a large bag. "Ready for our little theatrical performance?" "What's in the bag?" asked Caleb. "A few interesting things I found last night in my personal files," she winked. "Things your stepmother doesn't imagine I have." They walked through the streets of the small town. It was still early, but some people were already out heading to work. Mrs. Gable greeted everyone naturally, introducing Daniel as Bill, a friend who helped me find Caleb. When they reached the house where Caleb lived, they saw Gladys in the yard hanging clothes. She was a woman of 40, still pretty, but with a constantly sour expression that hardened her features. "Gladys!" called Mrs. Gable. The woman turned and nearly dropped the laundry basket when she saw Caleb. "Caleb, where have you been, you little devil? Do you know how worried you made me?" But there was no relief in her voice, there was irritation. "Sorry, stepmom, Gladys," interrupted Mrs. Gable, "let the boy explain properly. He went through a very serious situation." "What situation?" "He ran away because he didn't want to go to boarding school. Pure stubbornness." "It wasn't stubbornness," said Daniel, stepping forward. "The boy was the victim of a kidnapping." Gladys looked at him for the first time. Her eyes quickly scanned his face, but there was no sign of immediate recognition. "Kidnapping? What kidnapping? Who are you?" "My name is Bill. I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains. That's where I found Caleb, hidden in a cave, scared to death." "Hiding from what?" "From some men who took him from school," answered Caleb, following the agreed-upon script. "They wanted information about my father. They kept asking me questions about where he could be." Gladys's expression changed. It grew more tense. "What kind of questions?" About where he hid money if he left anything for you, that sort of thing. And what did you say? That I didn't know anything, that my father died. Daniel watched every reaction from Gladys. She was nervous, but trying to hide it. And how did you escape? She asked. In the early hours they relaxed their guard. I managed to get loose from the ropes and run into the woods. I hid in a cave until Bill found me. Why didn't you go straight to the police? It was Mrs. Gable who answered. Because first, we wanted to be sure there was no more danger. If these men are still looking for information about Daniel, it could be dangerous for all of you. Who are these men? Asked Gladys, but there was something forced in her curiosity. That's what we'd like to know, said Daniel. The boy said they seemed to know the family situation well. They knew about you, about his sister, about your schedules. Gladys paled. Well, Daniel owed money to a lot of people when he disappeared. It could be anyone. Did he really? Asked Mrs. Gable casually. Who did he owe? How should I know? He didn't tell me those things. Strange, because from what I remember, you even received some unpleasant visits here at home after he vanished. Gladys looked visibly uncomfortable. It was just a few people collecting small debts. Nothing serious. Nothing serious. Mrs. Gable opened her purse. Gladys, do you remember this paper? She took a document from her purse. It was a handwritten sheet. What paper is that? It's a letter you wrote to Daniel 3 days before he disappeared. A letter where you both planned exactly how this disappearance act would go. The blood drained from Gladys's face. Daniel's eyes widened. He didn't know Mrs. Gable had a copy of the letter. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't? Mrs. Gable began to read. Daniel, I agree with your plan, but under the conditions we discussed. You disappear and never come back. I take care of the children and stick to your story. In return, you give up any rights over them and over the assets left by Sarah. Gladys tried to grab the paper, but Mrs. Gable was faster. How did you get this? You forgot this letter at the doctor's office when you took Lily for a checkup. The nurse found it and brought it to me, thinking it was something important you had lost. That doesn't prove anything. It doesn't? Daniel took another step forward, removing his cap completely. What if Daniel himself were here to confirm it? Gladys stared at him for a full moment before recognizing him. When she did, her reaction was one of fury, not surprise. I knew it, she shouted. I knew you'd show up one day. Couldn't stay away, could you? Hi, Gladys, said Daniel calmly. I missed you too. You can't be here. We had an agreement. Yes, we did. But the agreements changed when you decided to send my son to a juvenile detention center. He's out of control. He doesn't obey, doesn't study, he's nothing but trouble. He's 12 years old and he's missing his father. That's normal. Normal? Gladys was hysterical now. Normal is you keeping your word and staying away. Normal is you not showing up here after 2 years causing a scene. Some neighbors began appearing at windows and gates, drawn by the shouting. Gladys, said Mrs. Gable firmly, you will calm down, and we will resolve this like civilized people. Or would you prefer I show this letter to other people in town? That's blackmail. It's the same thing you did to Daniel for 2 years. Daniel took a step closer. Gladys, I want my children back. They're not your children. You gave them up. I never gave them up. I gave up my physical presence to protect them, but I never stopped being their father. The law doesn't see it that way. I am their legal guardian. The law also doesn't look kindly on people who lie to authorities about disappearances, observed Mrs. Gable, especially when there are documents that prove the lie. Gladys realized she was cornered. She looked around and saw at least 5 neighbors watching the argument. All right, she said, forcing a lower tone. Let's talk inside. No, said Daniel. We'll talk right here, with witnesses. Why? Because you lied for 2 years. Now it's time for the truth. What truth? The truth about why you really want to get rid of Caleb. The truth about Sarah's inheritance. The truth about the well-dressed man you receive here when the children are at school. Gladys went white as a sheet. You've been spying on me? I've been watching my children, and I ended up watching you too. What well-dressed man? Asked Mrs. Gable, genuinely curious. A lawyer, replied Daniel. A lawyer who has been coming here regularly for over a year. Always when the children aren't home. And what's wrong with receiving a lawyer? Gladys tried to defend herself. Nothing. Unless that lawyer is helping you find ways to access the children's inheritance early. That's a lie. Is it? Then why are you in such a hurry to send Caleb away? Why are you trying to convince the school he's too problematic to study at home? Gladys looked around. The neighbors were getting more and more interested in the conversation, and she knew anything she said there would be spread all over town in a few hours. I only want what's best for them. What's best would be letting them stay with their father, said a familiar voice. Everyone turned. It was Lily, who had come home from school early because the teacher was absent. "Daddy?" whispered the girl, dropping her backpack on the ground. Daniel knelt down and opened his arms. Lily ran to him crying, "Daddy! I knew you hadn't died, I knew it. Hi, sweetheart, Daddy's here now. Are you leaving again?" "Never again, my love, never again." Gladys tried to intervene. "Lily, come here, let's go inside." "I don't want to," said the girl, clinging to her father. "I want to stay with my daddy." "Gladys," said Mrs. Gable, "I think it's time you accepted reality. Daniel is back. He is the children's legitimate father, and you have been lying to everyone for 2 years. He abandoned me, abandoned the children. He made a stupid agreement with you, driven by desperation, but he never abandoned anyone. The proof is that he came back as soon as he knew his son was in danger." Daniel looked at Gladys with a mix of anger and pity. "Gladys, why did you do this? Why did you lie to the children? Why did you let them suffer, thinking their father had died or abandoned them?" "Because I was angry." She exploded. "I'm furious at you for using me. You married me because you needed a nanny for your kids, not because you loved me. It's true, I was unfair to you. I married for convenience, and you deserved more than that. Then why are you taking the children from me too? They're all I have left. Because they aren't yours, and because you don't truly love them. You love the idea of having them. You love what they represent financially, but you don't love them. That's not true." "Yes, it is," said Caleb, speaking for the first time since they arrived. "You never treated me like a son. And Lily, you only treat her well when people are watching." "Caleb, that's no way to talk to your mother." "You're not my mother," the boy replied firmly. "My mother died when Lily was born. You're just a person who lived in our house and lied to us." The boy's words were like a slap to Gladys. She looked around, saw all the neighbors watching, saw that she had lost any sympathy she might have had. "Fine," she said, defeated. "Fine, you win. You can keep your precious children." "Gladys," said Daniel more gently, "I don't want you to leave with nothing. The house is yours. You can stay. What I want is for the lies to stop and for us to find a way to live together in peace." "Live together? You think I can keep living here after today? After everyone knows I lied about you being dead?" Daniel hadn't thought of that. It was true it would be very hard for her to stay in town after all that exposure. "Where will you go?" "I don't know. Far away. Very far from here." "And the lawyer? What exactly were you planning?" Gladys sighed, finally defeated. "He was trying to find a legal loophole for me to access the children's inheritance. He said if you were legally dead and they were considered too troubled to live in a normal family, I could be named permanent guardian and get access to the assets. Is that why you wanted to send Caleb to the juvenile detention center? It was part of the plan. To prove he was out of control, that I couldn't handle him alone. And Lily. Lily was always easier to control. I was going to keep her with me until she turned 18. Daniel shook his head, disgusted. "You were willing to separate siblings and destroy a child's life for money?" "I was desperate. You left no money when you left. I had to fend for myself to raise 2 children. You could have looked for me. You could have asked for help. Could I? How? You had vanished off the face of the earth." "I sent money, Gladys. Every month I left money in the mailbox. You never got it." Gladys fell silent. "I did. And you still planned this scheme with the lawyer?" "The money wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to live properly. But it was enough to survive until I could get myself together and come back." Mrs. Gable intervened. "Daniel, I think we've heard enough. Gladys, you have 2 choices. Either leave town quietly, or we take this whole story to the proper authorities. Lying about a disappearance is a crime." Gladys looked at Daniel one last time. You really never loved me, did you? Not in the way you deserve to be loved, and I'm sorry for that. And now, are we just going to pretend the last 2 years didn't happen? No, we'll learn from them. I'm going to treat my addiction. I'm going to get decent work. I'm going to be the father my children deserve. And you're going to rebuild your life far from here, hopefully in an honest way. Gladys went into the house to get her things. Daniel stayed in the yard hugging his children, still not quite believing he was there. "Dad," said Caleb, "are you really going to be able to beat the addiction?" "I'm going to try with all my might, son. I can't promise it will be easy, but I can promise I will fight. And if you feel like gambling again, then I'll talk to you, with Mrs. Gable, with anyone who can help me not do something stupid." "And where are we going to live?" "Right here, if you want. It's your house. And Gladys. Gladys will find her own path, away from us, but hopefully a better path than the one she chose." Lily, who had stayed quiet hugging her father, finally spoke. "Daddy, can I tell my school friends that you're back?" "Yes, Princess, you can tell anyone you want. And you're not going away ever again?" "Never again. I promise." "Swear?" "I swear." Gladys left the house carrying 2 large suitcases. She stopped in front of the gathered family. "Daniel, I really hope you'll be a better father this time." "I will be." "And kids," she looked at Caleb and Lily. "Despite everything, I enjoyed taking care of you. You're good kids." Caleb surprised everyone. "Gladys, thank you for taking care of us when Dad couldn't. You didn't do it the right way, but we know you tried." The woman smiled for the first time in a long while. "You're more generous than I deserved." She turned and walked away down the street carrying her suitcases. The neighbors were still at their windows, but now with a more understanding expression than a curious one. Mrs. Gable sighed. "Well, I think our mission is accomplished." "Mrs. Gable," said Daniel, "how can I thank you for what you've done for us?" "By being a good father to these children. That's the only thanks I want." "I promise I will be." "And Daniel, from now on, no more lies, okay? Not to protect, not to make things easier. The truth always, no matter how hard it is. Always." Daniel looked at the house where he had lived, where he had built a family, where he had made the worst decisions of his life. It was time to start over. "Do you want to go inside?" he asked his children. "I do," said Lily. "But first, what are we having for dinner? I'm really hungry." Daniel laughed. It was that simple. Being with his kids, worrying about everyday things like food, school, play. "How about we go into town to buy ingredients to make that pasta you liked when you were little? The one with red sauce and cheese?" asked Caleb, his eyes shining. "That's the one." "I remember," shouted Lily. "You let us help make the sauce." "And you always made a huge mess in the kitchen," Daniel recalled, laughing. "Can we do it again? Mess and all?" "Mess and all." They walked through the town streets toward the market. Some people greeted them, others just watched curiously. Daniel knew he'd be the town's topic of conversation for a few weeks, but he didn't mind anymore. The truth had been revealed, and it brought a lightness he hadn't felt in years. At the market, they met old Mr. Miller, who had owned the establishment for decades. "Daniel Harrison," the man exclaimed. "Son, where have you been all this time?" "It's a long story, Mr. Miller." "I bet it is. But the important thing is you're back for the kids. This place wasn't the same without you." "Thank you, Mr. Miller." "And you're staying this time, right? Not going to disappear again?" "I'm not disappearing again." Daniel pushed the shopping cart while Caleb and Lily chose ingredients. It was amazing how simple actions like that seemed miraculous after 2 years of deprivation. Back at the house, they cooked together. Daniel taught the kids how to saute onions. Caleb helped season the sauce. Lily squealed with joy every time the oil sizzled in the pan. It was exactly the mess he had promised. "Dad," said Caleb while stirring the sauce, "can I ask you something?" "You can ask me anything." "Did you miss us a lot?" The simple question hit Daniel like a punch in the stomach. "Every day, my son. Every second of every day." "Then why did it take so long for you to come back?" "Because I'm a coward, and because I was afraid you wouldn't forgive me." "We would always forgive you, Dad," said Lily. "We love you. I love you too. More than anything in this life." They ate the pasta at the kitchen table, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel told some adventures from life in the Blue Ridge Mountains, omitting the hardest parts. The kids talked about school, about friends, about the dreams they had. "Dad," said Lily, "will you take me to school tomorrow?" "If you want, sweetie." "I do. I want everyone to see that my daddy is back." "And you, Caleb? Do you want to go back to school too?" "I do, but not to that school Gladys picked. I want to go back to my old school, with my old friends." "Of course. We'll sort that out tomorrow." After dinner, they sat in the living room. Daniel looked around, recognizing objects he hadn't seen in 2 years, feeling at home for the first time in a long while. "Do you want to watch something on TV?" "Actually," said Caleb, "I wanted to talk more. I still have a lot of questions." "What kind of questions?" "About where you were, about what it was like living in the cave, about the men who threatened you." Daniel took a deep breath. He had promised there would be no more lies. "Okay, but some things might be hard to hear." "We can take it," said Lily seriously. "We've already been through a lot of hard stuff." Daniel told them about the first days in the Blue Ridge Mountains, about how he learned to survive, about the cold nights, about the hunger, about the loneliness. He told them about how he would watch the house from afar, about how he'd see the kids leaving for school and feel his heart break. "You saw us?" asked Caleb. "I did. Sometimes. In the early morning I would come close to the house just to feel closer to you." "And you never thought about coming in?" "I thought about it 1,000 times. But I was afraid of the deal with Gladys, afraid she'd carry out her threat to tell you about my addiction in a way that would make you hate me forever." "Daddy," said Lily, "do you still feel like gambling?" The question caught Daniel by surprise. "Sometimes. The addiction doesn't just disappear, sweetie, but now I have a very strong reason to resist." "What reason?" "You. I will never do anything again that could separate us." "And if you have a relapse," asked Caleb, "then I will seek professional help. I'll get serious treatment, and I'll tell you, without hiding anything." "Promise?" "I promise." They talked late into the night. Daniel put the kids to bed, told them stories, gave them good-night kisses. Simple things he had missed for 2 years of his life. When he finally went to lie down, in the same bed he had slept in with Gladys but which now felt different, Daniel looked out the window at the Blue Ridge Mountains, where he had spent so much time hiding. Never again, he promised himself. He would never run from his problems again. He would never choose the path of cowardice over the path of love. In the next room, Caleb and Lily were whispering before falling asleep. "Do you think he'll leave again?" asked Lily. "No, he's changed. You can see it in his eyes." "How so?" "Before, when he was in trouble, his eyes would get shifty, you know, like he was always thinking about other things. Now he looks right at us when he talks." "That's true. And he doesn't fidget with his phone or look away when we talk to him. I think we really have our dad back now. I hope so. I can't stand being without a dad anymore." "You won't have to. I won't let it happen." "How so?" "If I notice he feels like gambling again, or if he starts acting strange, I'll talk to him. I'll remind him how bad it was to be away from us." "Would you do that?" "I would. We're family, Lily. Family takes care of each other." "Caleb?" "What?" "You're not mad at him anymore?" Caleb thought before answering. "I'm still a little bit, but I miss him more than I'm mad. And missing someone is better than being angry." "Why?" "Because missing someone means you love them. Anger sometimes means you've given up on them." "You never gave up on Dad?" "Never. Even when everyone said he had died or abandoned us, I never gave up." "How did you know he would come back?" "I didn't know. But I hoped, and hoping is already a form of love." Lily smiled in the dark. "You're very smart for a 12-year-old. I had to grow up fast. But now I can be a kid again." "How so?" "Now I have a father to take care of me. I don't have to take care of just myself anymore." They slept holding each other, as they had on the hardest nights of the last 2 years. But this time it was a hug of joy, not of fear. The next morning Daniel woke up early and made breakfast for his children. When they came downstairs, they found the table carefully set, cut fruit, warm oatmeal, fresh juice. "Wow, Dad, what time did you wake up?" 5 in the morning. "I couldn't sleep well, I was so happy." "Happiness keeps you awake too?" asked Lily, intrigued. "Yes, it does, but it's a good kind of sleeplessness." They ate breakfast, talking about the plans for the day. Daniel would walk Lily to school, then stop by the town hall to sort out Caleb's transfer, and in the afternoon he would take them both to the doctor for a checkup. "Why the doctor?" asked Caleb. "Because I want to make sure you're healthy, and because it's been a while since you've had proper medical care." "Gladys never took us to the doctor," Lily confirmed. "Well, now you'll have regular medical checkups, and the dentist too." "Not the dentist," protested Caleb. "Yes, the dentist, no negotiation." Daniel smiled. It felt so good to have normal father problems again. When they left the house, they found Mrs. Gable watering the plants in the garden. "Good morning. How was the first night of the reunited family?" "It was perfect, Mrs. Gable. Thank you so much for everything." "No need for thanks. I just want to see you happy." "Would you like to have coffee with us tomorrow?" Daniel invited. "I accept, but on one condition." "What?" "That you tell me how you managed to survive 2 years in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I'm curious about that part of the story." "I'll tell you, but it's a long story." "I have time." They walked toward Lily's school. Along the way, they met several familiar people. Some greeted Daniel naturally. Others were a bit awkward, not knowing how to react to his return from the dead. At the school, the principal was confused by the situation. "Mr. Daniel, we were informed that you had passed away." "It was a misunderstanding, ma'am. I'm alive and back to take care of my children." "But Mrs. Gladys is no longer responsible for the children. I am their father, and I assume full responsibility for them from now on." The principal asked to see some documents, and Daniel provided everything properly. Lily went to class beaming, telling all her classmates that her dad had come back. After school, Daniel and Caleb went to the town hall to resolve the transfer situation. The clerk who helped them was also confused by the story, but with the documents in order, there was nothing to stop the process. "The boy can start at the new school on Monday," the clerk informed them. "Thank you," said Daniel. "Dad," Caleb whispered as they left the town hall, "everyone is going to keep asking about where you were." "Probably. And what do I say?" "The truth. That your father made mistakes, had to leave to protect the family, but now he's back and is trying to make things right." "What if they laugh at me?" "If they laugh, you hold your head high and say that at least your father came back. A lot of people aren't that lucky." Caleb thought about the response. "That's true. Bill from my old class doesn't have a father, never did. So you are lucky, and so am I." "How so?" "I'm lucky to have children who forgave me when I didn't deserve forgiveness." That afternoon at the doctor's office, Dr. Sterling examined both children thoroughly. "They're healthy," was his verdict. "A bit under the ideal weight, especially Caleb, but nothing that good nutrition won't fix." "Underweight, why?" asked Daniel, worried. "Probably emotional stress. Children who suffer a lot sometimes lose their appetite." Daniel felt guilty again, but the doctor continued. "But now that the family situation has stabilized, they'll gain the weight back quickly. Children are resilient." "And psychologically? Do you think they need follow-up?" "It would be good. 2 years is a long time in a child's life. They might need help processing everything that happened. Can you recommend someone?" "I can. Dr. Bennett, here at the center. She's a specialist in family therapy." Daniel wrote down the name and phone number. "And you, Daniel, how are you feeling?" Physically and emotionally." "Physically, I'm fine. I lost a lot of weight, but I'm healthy. Emotionally, it's complicated." "Do you have any addictions you'd like to treat?" Daniel hesitated. The children were in the office, listening to everything. "Dad," said Caleb, "you can talk. We already know about the problem with gambling." "You don't need to hide anything from us," added Lily. Daniel looked at the doctor. "Yes, I have a gambling addiction. I didn't gamble in these 2 years I was away, but I know the temptation can come back. Do you want treatment? I do. I need it. I'll give you the contact for a psychiatrist who works with gambling addiction, and I'll refer you to a support group too. Support group? Gamblers Anonymous. People who have been through the same problem as you. They meet once a week to talk, to support each other. And does it work? For those who want it to work, yes. Daniel left the office with a schedule full of medical and therapeutic appointments, but feeling more hopeful than he had in years. "Dad," said Caleb on the way back home, "are you scared of the treatment?" "A little. But more than scared, I'm hopeful." "Hopeful of what?" "That I can be cured, that I can be the father you deserve." "You already are the father we deserve," said Lily. "You just need to believe that too." His daughter's words moved Daniel deeply. Sometimes children had a wisdom that adults lost along the way. That night after dinner, Daniel helped his children with their schoolwork. It was amazing how they had managed to keep their grades up, even with all the emotional turmoil of the last few years. "You two are so smart," he observed. "We take after you," said Caleb. "And Mom," added Lily. Daniel smiled. It was the first time the children mentioned their deceased mother without sadness, only with affection. "Do you remember her?" "I remember a little bit," said Lily. "I remember she used to sing to me when I cried." "And I remember she used to make that chocolate cake on Sundays," said Caleb. "She would be so proud to see how you've grown." "Do you think she would forgive you too?" asked Lily. The question caught Daniel off guard. He had never thought about that. "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so." "I think she would," said Caleb. "Mom always said true love forgives everything." "She said that?" "She did. When I would get into mischief and you got angry, she always said that Dad truly loved me, and that's why he would always forgive me." Daniel felt his eyes well up. "Your mother was a wise woman." "That's why she chose you to be our father," said Lily with childish conviction. Daniel hugged both children, feeling blessed in a way he didn't deserve, but which he accepted with infinite gratitude. On Monday, Caleb started at the new school. Daniel walked him to the classroom door, as nervous as if he were the one changing schools. "It'll be fine," Caleb reassured him. "I studied here before. I remember some classmates. If anyone says anything unpleasant about our family—" "I know, Dad. Head up and truth forward." "That's right." Daniel waited outside the school until recess, just to make sure everything was okay. When he saw Caleb playing with other boys, he finally allowed himself to leave. His first appointment of the day was with Dr. Bennett, the psychologist recommended by the doctor. She was a middle-aged woman with a maternal but professional manner. "Daniel, tell me your story," she said after the formal introductions. Daniel told everything, from his wife's death through the addiction, the threats, the escape, the 2 years in the Blue Ridge Mountains, until the reunion with his children. The doctor listened without judgment, asking specific questions to clarify some points. "And how do you feel now?" she asked when he finished. "Guilty, grateful, afraid, hopeful, all at the same time." "That's normal. You went through a trauma, and your children did too. Recovery will take time." "How much time?" "There's no ready-made formula. Every family has its own pace, but the important thing is that you're together now and willing to work to improve." "And the children? Will they need therapy too?" "I'll talk to them in the next session and evaluate. But from what you've told me, they seem to have admirable resilience." "They take after their mother," Daniel smiled, "and their father too. You may have made mistakes, Daniel, but the fact that you came back shows you have courage, and courage can be learned." Daniel left the appointment feeling lighter. Having a professional to talk to about his problems made an enormous difference. In the afternoon, he went to pick up the children from school. Lily came running out to hug him, as if she hadn't seen him for days instead of hours. Caleb came out more slowly but smiling. "How was the first day at the new school?" "It was good. I made 2 new friends. And I found out the math teacher is the same one I had when I studied here before." "Did she remember you?" "She did. And she asked where you were. I said you had come back." "And did she say anything?" "She said she was happy. She said she always thought that story about you being dead was strange. Why? Because you came to talk to her at the end of last year about my grades. How could a dead person worry about their son's grades? Daniel stopped walking. She said that? Yes. Why? Is it a problem? No, it's not a problem. It's just, I didn't know anyone had seen me that day. Daniel vaguely remembered going to his son's school to ask about his performance a few months after he disappeared. It had been an impulsive decision, driven by concern for Caleb's well-being. Dad, are there more people who saw you during those 2 years? There might be. Then why didn't anyone tell Gladys? Daniel thought about the question. Maybe because people didn't believe her version. Maybe because they thought there was something strange about the story. Or maybe because people like us more than her, suggested Lily. That could be it too, sweetie. They arrived home and found Mrs. Gable waiting at the gate. Daniel, can I speak with you? Of course. Did something happen? Gladys came by here this morning. He came to return the house keys. Oh, and did he say anything? He said he's going to live with his sister in another city, and he asked me to give this to you. Mrs. Gable handed a sealed envelope to Daniel. Kids, go inside and do your homework. I want to talk with Mrs. Gable for a minute. When they were alone, Daniel opened the envelope. It was a handwritten letter. Daniel, when you read this letter, I will already be far away. I decided to accept your proposal to start over somewhere else. I want to apologize for the last 2 years. You are right, I don't love the children the way they deserve to be loved. I always saw them more as an obligation than a blessing. The truth is I was angry. Angry at you for using me to solve your problems. Angry at life for giving me a husband who didn't love me. Angry at myself for accepting a situation I knew wasn't ideal. When you disappeared, I thought I would finally have the chance to be important to someone. The children would depend on me, love me, see me as a real mother figure. But it didn't work out that way. Especially Caleb never stopped looking for you, never accepted me taking your place. The plan with the lawyer was the worst decision I ever made. It wasn't just greed, it was desperation. Desperation to be loved, to be important, to have some control over my life. But now I understand that love can't be forced, and that the children need you more than they need me. They were always yours, never mine. Take good care of them. They deserve a present and healthy father, and get serious treatment for your addiction, not just for you, but for them. Don't worry about me, I will manage to get back on my feet, and maybe one day I'll find someone who truly loves me, and I'll be able to love them back. I ask for forgiveness from you and the children for all my mistakes. Gladys. Daniel folded the letter slowly. There was sadness in those words, but also maturity. For the first time, Gladys had owned up to her failures without trying to justify them or shift the blame. What did she write? Asked Mrs. Gable. An apology, a sincere one. Will you forgive her? I already have. Holding a grudge, the only person who gets hurt is me. And the children? In time, they'll understand that Gladys was also a lost person, trying to find her place in the world the wrong way. You grew wiser in those 2 years in the Blue Ridge Mountains, Daniel. Or too tired to fight, he smiled. Mrs. Gable laughed too. It amounts to the same thing sometimes. Daniel put the letter in his pocket. One day, when his children were older, he might show it to them. So they would understand that people don't always do harm out of pure malice, but sometimes out of unresolved pain. That night during dinner, Lily asked an unexpected question. Dad, do you want to get married again someday? Daniel almost choked on his food. Why do you ask, sweetie? Because Anna Paula in my class said that when parents become widowers, they always find another wife. And would you like me to find another wife? Lily thought seriously about the question. Only if she was really nice. And if she really liked us. What about you, Caleb? What do you think? I think it's fine like this for now. Just the 3 of us. But if one day you find someone really special, someone who makes you smile the way Mom did, then it's okay. Daniel was moved by his children's maturity. You know you'll always be the most important people in my life, no matter what happens, right? We know, they answered in unison. And do you also know that I will never make any important decision without talking to you first? Even about a girlfriend, asked Lily, making Daniel laugh. Especially about a girlfriend. What if she doesn't like us? Then she's not fit to be part of our family. What if we don't like her? Then I'll talk with you to understand why. And if the reasons are just, it doesn't work either. Promise? I promise. Caleb smiled. I think you really learned, Dad. Learned what? That family is built together. That no one decides anything alone. I did learn, son. I learned in the worst possible way, but I learned. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to leave a like and especially to subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The following months were of slow but steady rebuilding. Daniel got a job as a tour guide in the Blue Ridge Mountains region, using the knowledge he had acquired during the 2 years living in the woods. The job didn't pay much, but it was honest and allowed him to stay close to his children. The family therapy sessions with Dr. Bennett were helping everyone process the trauma of the years of separation. Lily, who initially seemed the least affected, revealed she had developed separation anxiety and a fear that her father would disappear again. Caleb, in turn, was learning to deal with the repressed anger he had accumulated all that time. It's normal for you to feel these things, the therapist explained during one of the sessions. You went through a very great loss and now you're relearning to trust. But I trust my dad, Lily protested. Trusting doesn't mean not being afraid, sweetie. It means choosing to believe even when you're afraid. Daniel attended the Gamblers Anonymous meetings religiously. The group was made up of people of different ages and social classes, all united by the same fight against addiction. He had discovered he wasn't alone in that battle, and that made all the difference. The addiction never completely disappeared, the group coordinator explained. We learn to live with it, to recognize the triggers, and to seek help when needed. And when the urge to gamble hits, Daniel asked, then you remember what you could lose. And in your case, Daniel, it's very easy to remember. You've lost once. You won't want to lose again. It was true. Whenever he felt the temptation of gambling, which still happened, especially when he was stressed, Daniel remembered the 2 years in the mountains, the pain in his children's eyes, the shattered family. It was the best medicine against any self-destructive impulse. Life in the small town had returned to normal. People had gotten used to the return of the dead of Daniel and treated the family with naturalness again. Some neighbors even apologized for having believed Gladys's versions without question. We knew something was strange, confessed Mrs. Gable, but no one wanted to meddle in other people's lives. I don't judge you, Daniel replied. I would have doubts too if it were me. Mrs. Gable had become a surrogate grandmother to Caleb and Lily. She would pick them up from school when Daniel was working, helped with homework, gave advice about everyday things. Her house had become an extension of their house. One Saturday afternoon, while Daniel was working with a group of tourists in the mountains, the children were at Mrs. Gable's house learning to make cookies. That's when she received an unexpected call. Hello? Mrs. Gable? It's Gladys. She almost dropped the phone. Gladys, where are you? In Nebraska, living with my sister. Mrs. Gable, can I speak with the children? Daniel isn't home, they're with me. I know, that's why I called. I wanted to speak with them without Daniel present. Mrs. Gable hesitated. Gladys, are you sure this is a good idea? I need to apologize to them too, and I wanted to know how they are. One moment, Mrs. Gable called the children. It's Gladys, she wants to talk to you. But only talk if you want to, okay? Caleb and Lily looked at each other. I'll talk, said Caleb, taking the phone. Hi, Caleb. Hi, Gladys, how are you? I'm good, I got a job at a store here, and you? How are things there? They're good. Daddy is working, we're studying. Mrs. Gable takes care of us when he can't. And are you happy? Caleb thought about the question. We are. It wasn't easy at the beginning, but now we're happy. I'm glad. Caleb, I want to apologize to you. Apologize for what? For not being a real mother to you. For lying. For trying to separate you from your father. Why did you do that? The simple question from a child hit Gladys hard. Because I was in pain, Caleb, and people in pain sometimes hurt other people without meaning to. But did you really want to send me to the juvenile detention center? I did, and that was very wrong of me. Why? Why did you want to get rid of me? Gladys started crying on the other end of the line. Because you reminded me so much of your father, and I was angry with him, but the anger was mine, not yours. You weren't to blame for anything. And now are you still angry? No. Now I understand that your father did the best he could with the problems he had, and I also understand that you needed him, not me. Lily wants to talk to you, said Caleb, passing the phone to his sister. Hi, Gladys. Hi, my doll. How are you? I'm good. I grew a little, and I learned how to make bead bracelets. How nice. You were always clever with your hands. Gladys, are you going to come back one day? The question took everyone by surprise. Mrs. Gable held her breath. No, Lily. My life is here now, but that doesn't mean I don't care about you. And are you happy there? I'm trying to be happy. It's a process, you know? I know. When Daddy came back, it took us a while to learn how to be happy again. That's right, Princess. Sometimes happiness takes a little while to arrive. Gladys? Yes? Thank you for taking care of us when Daddy couldn't. Even though it was hard, you took care of us. Gladys broke down crying. Thank you for saying that, Lily. It means a lot to me. Do you want to talk to Daddy when he gets here? No need, sweetheart. I just wanted to know that you're okay. We are. And we hope you'll be okay too. I will be. And you will be too. You are strong and special children. When Daniel got home from work, Mrs. Gable told him about the phone call. How did they react? Very well. Better than I expected. They talked naturally, asked difficult questions, but without resentment. And her? How did her voice sound? Sad, but lighter. I think she really is trying to rebuild her life. Daniel nodded. It was good to know Gladys was okay, not because he felt any obligation toward her, but because it was easier to move forward knowing that no one had come out of that story completely destroyed. That night during dinner, the children told their father about the phone conversation. And how did you feel talking to her? Asked Daniel. It was strange at first, admitted Caleb, but then it felt normal. She seemed different. Different how? Sadder, but also more sincere. Before, when she lived here, it always seemed like she was acting. Today, she seemed more real. And you, Lily? How did you feel? I felt a little sorry for her. It must be hard to be far from everything you know. It is hard, agreed Daniel, who knew well what that was like. But sometimes we need to leave our comfort zone to grow. Like you did when you stayed in the Blue Ridge Mountains? Exactly. It wasn't by choice, but it ended up being necessary for me to learn some things about myself. What things did you learn, Dad? Daniel thought about the question. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I learned that I can survive almost anything if I have a good reason to. And I learned that you are my good reason. Did you learn anything else? I learned that problems don't disappear when you run away from them. They just get bigger. So you won't run away from anything anymore? That's right. Next time I have a big problem, I'll face it together with you. And if it's a problem we can't solve on our own, then we'll ask for help. From Mrs. Gable, from Dr. Bennett, from whoever is necessary, but always together. Caleb smiled. I like it when you say together. Why? Because it means we're a team. We are a team. And a team that plays together, wins together. 3 months later, Daniel received an unexpected proposal. The City Hall wanted to hire him to develop an ecotourism project in the Blue Ridge Mountains, using his knowledge of the region and his experience as a guide. It's a bigger job, explained the mayor, with better pay and more responsibilities, but it will also require more of your time. Daniel asked for some time to think and talk with his children. What do you think? He asked during dinner. Is it a good opportunity? Caleb wanted to know. Yes, it would be more stable work with better pay. We could have a more comfortable life. But would you have to work more? Yes, especially at the beginning, while I'm getting everything organized. And would we see you less? Daniel hesitated. A little less, yes, but not much less. Lily and Caleb exchanged that knowing look children have when they want to talk in private. "Can we talk about it and give you an answer tomorrow?" asked Lily. "Of course, sweetheart." That night, Daniel heard the children talking softly in their room. He couldn't make out the words, but he could tell it was a serious conversation. The next morning, they approached him with solemn expressions. "Dad, we talked about your job proposal," said Caleb. "And did you reach a conclusion?" "We did," replied Lily. "We think you should accept." Daniel was surprised. "Even knowing I'll have less time for you." "Dad," said Caleb, "you spent 2 years sacrificing yourself to protect us. Now it's our turn to sacrifice a little to help you." "What do you mean?" "We want you to have a job that makes you feel important and fulfilled, and if that means spending a little less time together, that's okay. We've already learned that love isn't measured by quantity of time." "And besides," added Lily, "Mrs. Gable said she can pick us up from school every day, and she can even teach us to cook so dinner is ready when you get home." Daniel was moved by his children's maturity. "Are you sure?" "We are," they answered together. "And if one day I realize I'm working too much and neglecting you?" "Then we'll tell you," said Caleb. "Just like we did with the gambling thing, we won't let you get lost again." "Promise?" "We promise." Daniel accepted the City Hall's proposal. The work really did take more time, but it was rewarding and well paid. And the children kept their promise. Whenever they thought he was working too much, they talked to him openly. "Dad, you've been coming home very late this week," said Lily one day. "That's true, sweetheart. The project is in a very busy phase. But we miss you." "I miss you too. What if I take the whole Saturday off so we can be together?" "Doing what?" "Whatever you want. Fishing at the river, if that's what you want. And have a picnic." "And have a picnic." "Then it's a deal." The special Saturdays became a family tradition. It was the day Daniel didn't think about work, didn't answer the phone, didn't solve any professional problems. It was dedicated exclusively to his children. During one of those Saturdays, while fishing in the river, unsuccessfully but with a lot of fun, Caleb made an interesting observation. "Dad, did you realize that today marks exactly 1 year since we became a family again?" Daniel stopped fiddling with the fishing rod. "Wow, that's true. I hadn't even realized." "And you know what's the coolest part?" said Lily. "What?" "That it feels like you never left. Like we remember the hard years, but they don't hurt as much anymore." "And why do you think they don't hurt anymore?" "Because we learned that the bad things in life don't cancel out the good things," explained Caleb. "They just stay together with them." "And sometimes," added Lily, "the bad things even help us appreciate the good things more." Daniel looked at his children with admiration. They had truly become wiser and more resilient people because of everything they had been through. "You know I'm very proud of you, right?" "Why?" asked Lily. "Because you are brave, intelligent, generous. Because you forgave when you could have held a grudge. Because you chose to trust when you could have chosen distrust." "Oh, Dad," said Caleb, a bit embarrassed. "We just did what any child would do." "That's not true. Many children wouldn't be able to be as mature as you were." "We had a good teacher," said Lily. "What teacher?" "Longing. Longing taught us to value the people we love." The 9-year-old girl's words moved Daniel deeply. He hugged both children right there, by the river's edge, not caring about the fishing rods that fell into the water. "I love you more than anything in this life," he said. "We love you too, Dad." "And you know what's the best part?" said Caleb. "What?" "That this time we can say it every day without fear of you disappearing. I will never disappear again. We know." They stayed there hugging until the sun began to set. Then they returned home, without any fish, but with hearts full of gratitude for having found their way back to each other. That night, Daniel wrote in a journal he had started keeping at Dr. Bennett's suggestion. "Today marks 1 year since our family reunited. Looking back, I realize that those 2 years of separation, despite being the most painful of my life, were also necessary. Not because running away is the solution to problems, but because sometimes we need to get completely lost to understand who we really are and what truly matters. I learned that being a father isn't just about being physically present. It's about being emotionally present. It's about being worthy of the trust our children place in us. It's about having the courage to face our own demons so as not to pass them on to them. Caleb and Lily taught me what true forgiveness is. Not the forgiveness that forgets, but the forgiveness that chooses love despite the hurt. They could have rejected me when I returned. They could have held resentment for years. Instead, they chose to give me a second chance. Gladys is also part of this story of new beginnings. I hope she found her own peace in Nebraska. Everyone deserves second chances, and she was no exception. If there is one lesson I want my children to carry for life, it is this. Families can break, but they can also rebuild, stronger, wiser, more united than before. True love has that magical ability to turn scars into wisdom. 2 years later, Daniel was organizing papers to apply for the tourism project coordinator position when he found the letter Gladys had left. He hadn't thought about her in a long time. "Caleb, Lily, come here for a moment." The children appeared in the living room. "Do you think it's time for you to read this?" He showed them Gladys's letter. They, now 14 and 11 years old, had enough maturity to understand the complexities of the situation. They read in silence, passing the letter from one to the other. "She writes well," Lily commented when she finished, "and it seems she really understood the mistakes she made," Caleb added. "What did you feel reading this?" "Pity," said Lily, "and relief." "Relief from what?" "From knowing she wasn't bad. She was just lost, like you were for a while." "And you, Caleb?" "I felt she loved us in her own way. A bit twisted, a bit selfish, but she loved us. And that makes everything feel less heavy." Daniel put the letter back in the drawer. "Would you like to talk to her from time to time?" The children looked at each other. "Maybe," said Caleb. "Not to become a family again, but to know she's okay." "I'm fine with it," Lily agreed. "As long as she understands our place is here with you. Of course it's here. You are my children, and I am your father. That will never change." That same week, Daniel called Gladys. She was surprised to hear his voice. "Daniel, did something happen to the children?" No, everyone's fine. I called because they read your letter and would like to keep in touch with you from time to time." There was silence on the other end. "Really? Really? Not as a family, but as people who care about each other. And you? Do you agree with this?" "I agree. I think we all win when we choose peace instead of war." "How are they?" "They're great. Growing, studying, being happy. Caleb is thinking about taking a technical course in tourism. Lily has become a cooking expert, learning new recipes every week with Mrs. Gable." "And you? How is work?" "Good. Very good. I'm coordinating a big sustainable tourism project in the region. It's challenging but rewarding." "I'm glad to hear that. And the addiction?" "Under control. I'm in treatment. I attend the support group. I have a network of people who help me stay focused." "That's good. I always worried about that." "Gladys, can I ask you a question?" "Of course. Are you happy there?" She took a moment to answer. "I'm learning to be. I found a nice boyfriend. I work at a school as a secretary. It's not the life I dreamed of, but it's an honest life. That's what matters." "Daniel?" "Yes?" "Thank you for calling. It means a lot to be able to talk to you all without anger, without hurt. It means a lot to us, too." From that day on, Gladys called once a month to check on the children. Brief, cordial conversations, with no pretense beyond maintaining a healthy emotional bond. Daniel noticed that this was good for everyone, including himself. At the end of the 3rd year after the reunion, Daniel received an even bolder proposal: to open his own eco-tourism company in partnership with the City Hall and some investors from the capital. "It's a very big step," he explained to the children. "If it works, we'll have a financial stability we've never had, but if it fails, we could lose everything." "What's your feeling about it?" asked Caleb, using a question he had learned in therapy sessions. "I'm excited, but scared." "Scared of what?" Lily wanted to know. "Scared of failing. Scared of betting too high and losing everything again." "Dad," said Caleb, "but this time it's not a bet. It's work. It's knowledge. It's an opportunity you earned on your own merit. It's different from the bets of the past, Lily agreed. With bets, you depended on luck. Here, you depend on your talent. Daniel reflected on his children's words. You're right, but it's still scary. Of course it is, said Caleb. All the important things in life are scary, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. And if it goes wrong, we face it together, Lily added, just like we did with everything else. With his children's support, Daniel accepted the proposal. In the following months, he worked as he had never worked in his life to build the company. But it was work different from the gambling addiction. It was work with purpose, with planning, with responsibility. The company started small, with only 2 employees besides Daniel. But the project was ambitious, to create tourism itineraries that valued both nature and local culture, generating income for the community without degrading the environment. You know what's the coolest thing about this project? Daniel commented to his children during a dinner. What? It's that I'm using everything I learned in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The knowledge of the trails, the plants, the animals. I'm turning those 2 difficult years into something productive. It's like you always say, observed Caleb. Bad experiences are useful too. Exactly. Nothing in life is completely lost if we know how to extract a lesson. The company grew gradually. In the first year, it served just over 100 tourists. In the second year, it was nearly 1,000. In the third year, Daniel needed to hire more guides and expand the structure. Dad, you're getting famous, joked Lily, seeing her father's name in a report about sustainable tourism in the regional newspaper. Not famous, just respected for the work. It's the same thing, said Caleb. You're being recognized for the good you do. Daniel smiled. It was true he felt professionally fulfilled like never before, but what made him proudest was seeing that he could balance success at work with a constant presence in his children's lives. You know none of this would have happened if you hadn't given me a second chance, right? Oh, Dad, said Lily, stop being dramatic. You deserved that second chance. It's true, agreed Caleb. And you know why? Because you never stopped being our dad, even when you were far away. His son's observation touched Daniel deeply. How so? Even when you were in the Blue Ridge Mountains, hiding, you kept looking after us from a distance. You sent money, kept an eye on whether we were safe. You never stopped being a father. You just stopped being physically present, added Lily, but the fatherly love was still there. Daniel was moved by his children's perception. Thank you for seeing it that way. It's the only way to see it, Dad, because it's the truth. 5 years after the reunion, Daniel's company had become a reference for sustainable tourism in the region. He employed 15 people from the local community and served over 5,000 visitors a year. Caleb, now 17, had decided to study business administration with a focus on environmental management. He wanted to work in his father's company, but not as a spoiled heir, rather as a qualified professional. Dad, I want to do an internship at the company during the holidays, he announced. Of course, son, but you'll be treated like any other intern. No special privileges for being my son. That's exactly how I want it. Lily, at 14, had developed an interest in photography and always accompanied the tourist groups when she could, capturing the beauty of the Blue Ridge Mountains and the joy of the visitors. Her photos had become the company's official promotional material. Lily, your photos are getting better and better, praised Daniel, flipping through the new promotional material. Thanks, Dad. I think I've discovered my talent. And what do you want to do with your life? Photography? I want to study tourism too, but with a focus on visual communication. I want to help people see the beauty that sometimes goes unnoticed. Daniel smiled. His children had found ways to use their talents in service of something bigger than themselves. That was all a father could wish for. On a December night, exactly 5 years after the reunion in the cave, Daniel suggested something different. What do you think about us going up to the Blue Ridge Mountains tomorrow, visiting the cave where it all began? Really? Asked Caleb, excited. Really? I think it would be good to see that place with different eyes. How so? When I was there, it was a place of suffering. Now it can be a place of gratitude. Can I bring the camera? Asked Lily. You can, and we can have a picnic there too. The next day, the three climbed the familiar trail leading to the cave. Daniel knew every stone along the path, but now he walked with lightness, without the weight of guilt and despair he had carried years before. "Is this it?" asked Lily when they reached the cave entrance. "This is it," confirmed Daniel. They entered together. The cave was exactly as Daniel had left it, clean, organized, with a few items still neatly arranged in the corner. "Wow, Dad, you really lived here?" asked Caleb, impressed. "I did. 2 years of my life. How did you bear the loneliness?" Daniel thought about the question. "By thinking of you. Every time the loneliness became unbearable, I remembered I was there to protect you. That gave me strength." Lily photographed everything, the cave entrance, the interior, her father and brother exploring every corner. "You know what's funny?" she said. "What?" "This place doesn't seem haunted or sad. It seems welcoming." It was true. The cave no longer held the energy of despair Daniel remembered. There was a serenity there, as if it knew it had served its purpose. "Dad," said Caleb, "can I ask you something? And of course, do you regret coming here? I know it was an escape, but do you regret it?" Daniel reflected deeply before answering. "It's complicated. I regret running away instead of facing the problems head-on. I regret causing you pain, but I don't regret what I learned here." "What did you learn here?" "I learned to truly know myself. I learned I can survive anything if I have a strong enough reason. I learned that simplicity is sometimes better than complexity. And I learned that you are truly the most important thing in my life. So in a way, this place was important for our family?" It was. Not in the way I would have wanted, but it was. They had their picnic at the cave entrance, sharing sandwiches and juice while admiring the stunning view of the Blue Ridge Mountains. It was an incredible contrast. Daniel remembered cold, lonely nights there, and now he was surrounded by his children's love, his heart full of gratitude. "Dad," said Lily, "can I make a kind of crazy suggestion?" "Go ahead. What if we turned this place into a spot on the tourist trail? Not telling your personal story, of course, but as a place for reflection on second chances." Daniel was surprised by the suggestion. "You think people would be interested?" "I do. Everyone goes through hard times in life. Everyone sometimes needs a place to reconnect with themselves." "And we could call it the Renewal Trail," suggested Caleb, joining his sister's idea. "You've thought of everything," laughed Daniel. "Well, we've watched you work for years. We learned to think like entrepreneurs too," explained Caleb. Daniel looked at his children with infinite pride. They had become incredible young adults, full of ideas, compassion, and vision for the future. "You know what makes me proudest about you?" "What?" "That you want to use our difficult experiences to help other people. You turned pain into purpose." "We learned from the best teacher," said Lily, hugging her father. "What teacher?" "You. You taught us it's possible to start over, that it's possible to turn mistakes into wisdom." Daniel hugged both his children right there, at the entrance of the cave that had been his home during the darkest moments of his life. Now it witnessed the brightest moment, the unconditional love of a family that had chosen forgiveness, trust, and hope. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky," he said. "And we love you more than all the fish in the sea," they replied in unison, repeating a playful saying they'd had since childhood. When they descended from the Blue Ridge Mountains, the sun was setting. Daniel looked back one last time at the cave that had been his salvation and his prison, his refuge and his challenge. He would never need to return there as a resident again, but he could always return as a visitor, bringing people who, like him, needed to believe it's possible to start over. 6 months later, the Renewal Trail was officially inaugurated. It became one of the company's most sought-after routes, especially by people going through difficult times in life. Daniel never told his personal story to the visitors, but he spoke about renewal, about second chances, about the human capacity to overcome adversity, and he always ended the tours with the same phrase: "Remember, no matter how lost you feel, There's always a path back home. There's always a chance to start anew. Many people left transformed, inspired, filled with renewed hope. And Daniel knew he was fulfilling his true purpose, turning his painful experience into a source of healing for others. On a Sunday afternoon, almost 6 years after the reunion, Daniel was in the backyard reading the newspaper when Caleb approached with a serious expression. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something important." His son's tone made Daniel alert. "What is it, son? Did something happen?" "Nothing bad happened. It's about the future." "What future?" "My future." "Our future as a family." Daniel set the newspaper down. "Sit here and tell me. Dad, I'm graduating from college next year, and I'll probably work at the company. Lily is also growing up. She'll choose a profession. She'll build her own life." "Yes, and so?" "And so it's time for you to think about your personal life too." Daniel didn't understand where his son was going with this. "What do you mean?" "Dad, you're 45. You're at the peak of your professional life. You're an interesting, successful man. Why don't you get a girlfriend?" The question caught Daniel completely off guard. "Caleb, we've talked about this. You are my priorities. And we always will be. But that doesn't mean you have to live alone for the rest of your life." Lily appeared from inside the house, as if she had coordinated with her brother. "Dad, we were talking, and we think you deserve to be happy too. Not just as a father and a professional, but as a man." Daniel looked at his 2 children, touched by their concern. "You think I'm not happy?" "You are happy," said Caleb, "but you could be happier." "And how did you reach that conclusion?" "By observing you," explained Lily. "Sometimes, when you think we're not looking, you get a somewhat melancholy expression, like you're missing something. And we know it's not us," added Caleb, "because you're a wonderful father. So it can only be a lack of adult companionship, someone to share the joys and worries with." Daniel fell silent, processing his children's words. "What if I get a girlfriend and you don't like her?" "Then we talk," said Lily, "just like we agreed years ago." "What if she doesn't like you?" "Then she's not the one," Caleb replied without hesitation. "Any woman who wants to be in your life will have to accept that we're part of the package." "And you won't be jealous? You won't think I'm dividing your love with someone else?" The 2 looked at each other and smiled. "Dad," said Lily, "we've learned that love isn't pizza. It doesn't shrink when you share it. It grows. And besides," added Caleb, "we want to see you completely happy. And complete happiness includes romantic love too." Daniel was moved by his children's generosity. "Are you sure you want this?" "We are," they answered in unison. "And do you already have someone in mind?" asked Daniel, joking. "Maybe," said Lily with a mischievous smile. "What do you mean, maybe?" "Mrs. Clare, from Lily's school," explained Caleb. "She always asks about you when she picks up Lily. And she's very pretty," added Lily. "And nice, and divorced." "Did you already research the woman's life?" laughed Daniel. "We just paid attention," said Caleb. "And she seems cool." Daniel knew Claire vaguely. A woman in her 40s, a literature teacher, mother of a 10-year-old boy. She had always been kind in the few encounters they had at school. "And what if I ask her out and she says no?" "Then you ask someone else," said Lily simply. "You make it sound so easy." "Because it is easy, Dad. You're just overcomplicating it because it's been a long time since you thought about these things." Daniel reflected on the conversation. It was true that sometimes he missed adult companionship, someone to share the daily challenges with, the successes and failures, the fears and dreams. "All right," he finally said. "I'll think about it." "Don't think too much," advised Caleb. "Otherwise you never do anything." "It's true," agreed Lily. "You have a tendency to overcomplicate simple things." Daniel laughed. His children knew him very well. Okay. I'll talk to Mrs. Clare at the next school meeting." "Yay," celebrated Lily. "It'll be nice to have a potential stepmom who's cool." "Hold on there, princess. I haven't even gone on a first date with the woman yet." "But it'll work out," said Caleb with conviction. "We have good intuition about these things." A week later, during a parent meeting at Lily's school, Daniel took a moment when Claire was alone to talk to her. "Claire, can I make you a somewhat unusual invitation?" She looked at him curiously. "Of course, Daniel, what invitation? Would you like to have coffee with me one of these days, to talk away from the school environment?" Claire smiled. "I thought you'd never ask. Of course I accept." Daniel was surprised by the answer. "You thought I'd never ask?" "Daniel, for months we've been bumping into each other here at school, and I've been waiting for you to start a conversation. I even thought you had a girlfriend." "I don't. And you?" "Me neither. And before you ask, I want you to know I know your story. I don't know all the details, but I know enough to admire your courage in starting over." Daniel felt relieved. He wouldn't have to explain his whole journey right on the first date. "And that doesn't bother you?" "On the contrary, I think people who have been through difficulties and managed to overcome them are more interesting. They have more depth." Daniel smiled. "So how about tomorrow at 4 in the afternoon? I know a really good cafe downtown." "Perfect." When Daniel got home, he found the children waiting anxiously in the living room. "So?" asked Lily. She accepted. "Woohoo!" celebrated Caleb. "We knew it." "How did you know?" "Because she always gets a little flushed when she talks to you," explained Lily. "It's obvious she likes you. You two are very clever." "We inherited it from you," said Caleb. Daniel laughed. He was as nervous as a teenager, but also excited. He hadn't felt this way in years. The date with Claire was better than Daniel expected. They talked for over 2 hours about children, work, dreams, life experiences. Claire was intelligent, sensitive, had a sense of humor and a worldview similar to his. "Can I ask you a personal question?" she said at one point. "Of course." "Do your children know you're here with me?" "They do. Actually, they were the ones who encouraged me to invite you." "Really? Really?" "They said I deserved to be completely happy, and that complete happiness included romantic love." Claire smiled, moved. "What wonderful children you have." "I really do. And you?" "Does your son know about our meeting?" "He does. And he's curious to meet you. He said, if you're Lily Harrison's father, you must be cool because she's one of the nicest girls at school." "Do they know each other?" "They do, and they get along. Another point in our favor, don't you think?" Daniel agreed. If the kids already knew and liked each other, it would be easier for everyone. "Claire, can I be honest with you about something?" "Of course." "It's been a long time since I've had a serious relationship. 6 years, to be exact. I'll need patience to relearn some things. Daniel, I got divorced 2 years ago. I also need to relearn. We can go slowly, figuring it out together." Her answer completely reassured Daniel. "Would you like to have dinner with me on Saturday, at my house, so you can get to know my children better and they can get to know you?" "I'd love to. Can I bring Toby along?" "Of course. The more, the merrier." Saturday's dinner was an absolute success. Toby, Claire's son, immediately hit it off with Caleb and Lily. Claire was natural with the children, interested in their stories, respectful of the family dynamic Daniel had built with his kids. "Claire," said Lily during dessert, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear." "Do you really like my dad, or are you just being polite?" The girl's direct question made everyone laugh. "Lily, I love children's honesty. Yes, I like your father very much. I think he's an admirable man. And if you two date, will you want to boss us around?" "Of course not. You already have a wonderful father who knows very well how to take care of you. I would just be a special friend of the family." "But a special friend who likes to kiss Daddy?" asked Toby, making everyone laugh even more. "Toby," scolded Claire, red with embarrassment. "Let him ask," said Daniel. "It's natural to be curious." "Yes, Toby," answered Claire, deciding to be direct. "A special friend who likes to kiss Daddy." "So are you two going to be boyfriend and girlfriend?" Lily wanted to know. Daniel and Claire looked at each other. "If everyone agrees, yes," said Daniel. "I agree," Lily said immediately. "Me too," said Caleb. And can I call Daniel uncle? Asked Toby. You can call me whatever you want, replied Daniel, laughing. After dinner, while the children watched a movie in the living room, Daniel and Claire talked on the porch. Your children are amazing, she said. Yours too. Toby is a lovely child. Daniel, can I tell you something that might sound strange? Go ahead. When I first saw you at the school, I had the feeling I already knew you. Like you were a familiar person, you know? Daniel smiled. I had the same feeling. And you know what I think it was? What? Recognition. Recognition of someone who has been through similar struggles and come out the other side stronger. Maybe. My divorce was very difficult. I thought I'd never be able to trust anyone again. And how do you feel now? Claire looked him in the eyes. I feel like maybe I'm ready to try again. With the right person. Daniel took her hand. Claire, I can't promise it will be easy. I have some emotional scars, some fears I'm still overcoming. Daniel, everyone who has truly lived has scars. The important thing is that they don't stop us from loving again. They kissed for the first time there on the porch, under a starry sky, with the sound of the children's laughter coming from the living room. It was a gentle kiss, full of promises of mutual care. When they parted, Daniel smiled. I think my children are going to be very happy. Mine too. Our children, corrected Daniel. Our children, repeated Claire, smiling. End of story. This was a fictional story created to touch our hearts. Now tell us what you thought. Which part moved you the most? Do you believe in the power of family forgiveness? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. Thank you for staying with us until the end.